Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
What if fear, anger, grief, and desire were never problems to solve, but forces to be educated? What if freedom wasn't the absence of emotion, but the moment emotion stopped running your life and started serving your soul? Today, we bring everything together. I'm back with another key to soul progress, and that is the right use of emotional power. This is the final episode of our series, Hidden Emotional Alchemy, Transforming Pain into Spiritual Power. We began with wounds as initiations. We've learned how pain speaks. We discovered how suffering can become Christ-like power. And now we arrive at the final movement of the soul's journey. One of the phases, because the soul continues to grow and grow. And this phase of the soul's journey is related to understanding the emotional alchemy of wounds, of pain. Right use of emotional power, I believe, is the gateway from fear into divine freedom. Not freedom from life, not freedom from feeling, and not freedom from something that's out there creating anxiety or hesitation, but it's freedom within feeling. How do we become free in the midst of the feelings that we experience? Ancient wisdom teaches that emotion is creative energy moving through the human self, the force field, moving through us. Not metaphorically, but literally, moving through our body as an energetic field of energy. Such things as fear, anxiety, grief, and desire are not moral failures. They are raw power. Let's bring this into everyday life. Think about it as you're moving throughout your day, moving throughout your interactions with other people, trying to get your work done. And when these types of emotions arise, think about this and what I'm going to share with you right now. Fear, when unconscious, creates control, anxiety, overthinking, people-pleasing. When educated, fear becomes discernment, the ability to sense wisely without panic. Anger, when unconscious, creates conflict, resentment, withdrawal, or attack. When educated, anger becomes clarity, the courage to name truth and set boundaries. Grief, for example, when unconscious, creates stagnation, numbness, or despair. When educated, grief becomes depth, compassion, humility, reverence for life. And desire, when unconscious, creates attachment, addiction, or dissatisfaction. And when educated, desire becomes aspiration, the soul's longing for union with God, the Creator, the I Am Presence, something higher. This is why emotion is the soul's task. Emotion is energy seeking direction, and the soul exists to give that direction through the auspices of the Christ, the I Am Presence, through the Creator. Spiritual teaching across the traditions agree on this point. The soul evolves not by avoiding life, but by governing energy wisely. And the Christ nature, the divine pattern within ourselves, does not eliminate emotion. It redeems it. Christ consciousness working through the soul says, I do not reject this emotion. I refine it. I align it with love. The right use of power is the moment emotion stops asking, how do I protect myself? And begins asking, how may I serve truth? That's the shift from self-protection to truth service. This becomes the doorway of freedom. But it must be practiced. Clara looked strong on the outside, efficient, reliable, capable, but inside, she lived in a constant state of readiness, always anticipating what might go wrong. She wasn't powerful. She was braced. Braced means her nervous system was always on guard. Her emotions weren't flowing. They were held tight, like muscles clenched for impact. Fear disguised itself as responsibility. And here's how the shift actually happened. After snapping at her teenage son one evening, Clara felt something new, not guilt, but recognition, as she paused after her actions. She noticed her chest was tight, her breath was shallow, her thoughts were racing, and instead of justifying the action, she asked a different question based on her thinking and listening to some of the podcasts that I have given over the past couple of years. And she was able to pause. What am I afraid would happen if I relaxed? She felt that tension in herself. She felt that sense of needing to control some situations that were happening for her son. And the question changed everything. She realized fear wasn't warning her of danger. It was asking her to trust life instead of managing it, instead of controlling it. She practiced something simple and specific. When emotion arose, she did 3 things. First, name the feeling. This is fear, anxiety, doubt, anger. Then she located it in the body. Tight in my chest, butterflies in my stomach. It's a sense that my jaw feels too tight. And 3, she asked a higher question. What would love do right now? Sometimes love meant silence. Sometimes it meant speaking calmly. Sometimes it meant letting something fall apart, not needing to control everything. Over time, fear lost authority, not because it disappeared, but because it was no longer obeyed blindly. Fear became information, not instruction. This is what I say to my coaching clients. We have to look at these strong emotions from a different vantage point, a higher vantage point. What is the soul lesson here? What is the energy that I want to show forth here? What is the energy that I need to know that I need to gain mastery around? Not avoid it, not to try to look around it or over it or from it. And when we take that pause and realize you no longer have to be obedient blindly, and instead you become more enlightened. And this is the right use of power. Fear is untrained faith. The same energy that imagines disaster can imagine possibilities. The same intensity that fuels anxiety can fuel courage. The difference is where awareness stands. When awareness stands inside fear, fear leads. When awareness stands in the soul, in your values that are rooted in something greater than yourself, fear reports. Practice this daily. When fear arises, do not ask, how do I stop this? Ask instead, what is the energy asking me to become aware of? Then consciously choose a response that serves truth, not comfort. This is how faith is trained, through repeated conscious choice. Let me give you an example. David's resentment wasn't explosive, it was contained. Years of feeling overlooked had compressed anger into silence. The shift happened when he stopped judging the anger and started listening. And he asked, if this anger could speak without accusation, what would it say? Without judgment, without being critical or resentful, what would it say? And the answer was simple. I want to be seen. That awareness allowed anger to become clarity, not aggression. Instead of reacting, he spoke truthfully, calmly, and firmly. Anger didn't disappear, it matured, it's transformed. This is Christ's nature in action, strengthening without hostility. Let's integrate everything in terms of the 4-point series we've gone through. You'll see how they build upon each other. Part 1 taught us wounds initiate growth. Part 2 taught us pain communicates truth. Part 3 taught us surrender refines power. And Part 4 teaches us how to live it daily. Emotional mastery is not transcendence of humanity. It is divinity expressed through humanity. This is how the soul matures. Carry this with you practically. 1. Every feeling is power. Ask daily, how am I using this energy? 2. Every moment is a choice. Pause before reacting. Even 2 seconds retrains the soul, retrains the personality of the ego persona past. When we can retrain those reactions and center it in more soul-centered reactions, we are on a different path of moving up the mountain. And number 3, every choice creates, yes, you heard me say this, act or remain silent consciously. Each choice shapes your inner world. And you're being more aware now of why I don't need to say anything there at this point in time. Or I need to act in a particular way. But you're always doing it from the standpoint of your spiritual growth, your awareness of your inner nature, your awareness of your intentions, and what you're trying to share, speak, act, be. And live as if your emotional life is sacred, because it is. And when we think about the sacredness of our emotional life, then we think about the holiness. And in that holiness, we stand in a greater self-awareness and reverence that the situations that are coming my way to teach me something, to guide me in a particular way, to allow me to be able to test my mettle. How well did I do there? When I had that interaction with Uncle Bob, I almost went back into a way of being that I'm trying to get out of. My family always overreacts, gets angry, and gets resentful. I don't want to be that anymore. I want to show up differently with Uncle Bob. When I use these steps and realize that every choice creates something for me, I want to make a better choice. When we are able to make that better choice, we are on the right path for the soul to evolve, for the soul to grow. Oh, you have a strange relationship with your mother, and you have to spend a week with her. And it's like, oh no, what am I going to do here? And I can't get out of not spending this week with my mother, but she really grates on me. Look at it as opportunity. Look at it as a way of emotional mastery. Look at it from the standpoint that she may not want to grate on you, or she may, I don't know, but you have no control over what she does or does not do. All you have control over is who you are and how you want to show up, and keeping mindful of your direction and your spiritual life that you're trying to move in. So you go back and think about these steps when you had that week with your mother. You journal a little bit, or write some things in your cell phone that allows you to keep alert to what I have just said. Every feeling is power. So how do I use that power in a way that makes me more discerning? She's creating a lot of irritability with me. Or when she does this, she makes me feel angry. But realize something. No one makes you feel angry. We choose to accept the bait of being angry. We can now make different choices, because that's the second part. Every moment is a choice. And we have to pause and say, do I want to go down the old pathway, or do I want to go on into a different pathway? That I have opportunity, and I do have choices. I don't have to say the first thing that comes out of my mouth. I can pause, smile to yourself, and ask yourself, what do I want to do here? And sometimes, you know what? It's not saying anything. Or sometimes it is saying to your mom, Mom, that doesn't work with me any longer. I prefer if we could talk this way with each other. Because you're an adult now, and she's an older adult, and you're trying to look at another pathway of communication that's helpful for the two of you. And if she doesn't choose to change, you have no control over that. All you can control is your emotional reactions, and not try to stuff them, but be aware of them. Because number 3 is, every choice creates. Be speaking, acting, or remaining silent. But you're doing it in a conscious and intentional way, because you know that each choice shapes your inner world. And your inner world you have chosen to see as sacred. And if you're working from that premise, that there's a sacredness, a holiness, a reverence of that exists within me, my temple. And I think sometimes we don't think of our body as a temple. But yes, it is a temple. And how we think, how we react, all has an impact upon our inner temple. And why not have the sanctity of holiness, the harmony and the peace, and just saying no to this energy that wants you to engage, be it your mom, be it whoever, then I choose not to go down that road. I choose not to go down that road. And instead, listen with grace to my soul prompting, my Christ self, the I am presence through Creator. I choose to listen with grace and hear what I need to do in this situation, and then follow accordingly, being more obedient to your inner voice than to these external things that are happening to you, that are pushing you, you feel, that is trying to pull you in a certain direction or trying to make you have a certain reaction. And you're saying, like cosmic scissors, I'm cutting those ties. That no longer these beings are pushing me to react. Instead, I'm being centered in my own self. I'm learning about my own self. I'm growing through these experiences. I'm allowing myself to continue to mature, to grow, to advance, because I want to be my best self. You were never meant to be ruled by emotion. You were meant to master it, to learn from the emotions. This is the art of emotional alchemy. This is the soul's freedom. And when we know that I do have freedom of my emotions, it may take time, it may take a little bit intentional, conscious effort, but isn't it worth it? To have this freedom of having greater emotional mastery. And there's so much more to talk about, and I will in future episodes about emotional mastery, because I think that's one of the reasons we're on this planet. But what I've given in this 4-part series is some steps, some things to think about as we're moving forward in life and also moving forward in 2026. So take a moment and ask yourself, where in my life am I being called to use emotional power more consciously, wisely, helpfully? And if something came up for you in our discussion, share it in your comments. And where in my life am I being called to use emotional power more consciously, intentionally, with the awareness that you continue to grow and advance wisely, helpfully, and have fun with this. Have fun, because when we make those incremental movements forward and see that what you did today is different from what you did in the past, your steps are moving you in the right direction, and your soul rejoices with that. So if you have a comment, please feel free to leave it. Your insights may help others on the path. Something to think about. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.